right, time to shoot now. Time now for everyone's favorite segment of the week. It is time.
It's time for a good old-fashioned Q&A, MMA fans.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment has arrived to hear from the man himself, Ariel Helwani. Live from the Box Studios in beautiful New York City.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much to Mike Heck.
And now,
on the nose time.
To answer your questions, get out of your seats and on your feet because here he is, Ariel Helwani.
Oh, yes. Yes, from the Northwest. Oh, you want to play it again? So good. We
thought we could do it again.
Do it again, yeah. Getting very nervous about all this Brennan Johnson transfer talk. Have you seen this, GC? A lot of people saying Brennan might be leaving.
Yeah, let's hope not, man. Need him to stay up next year.
Oh, I'm so nervous. I mean, if he leaves, no, I'm not going to leave as well, but that would suck. I don't like this. What, people could just poach your talent? What is up with this?
Yeah, welcome to football, man.
Fucking hell. I mean, I think that would be more devastating than Mbappe leaving PSG or Messi leaving PSG or Benzema leaving Real Madrid. I mean, Declan Rice leaving West Ham. Brennan's the heart and soul. Can't have that happen. Eric Haber is first. Shalom, Ariel, and crew. With the career of Amanda Nunes being celebrated by hardcore fans, but perhaps flying under the radar with the casual audience in the wake of her retirement, how do you feel her career will be remembered by the masses in 10 plus years? I think history will regard it as increasingly spectacular as time passes. Thank you, your friend Eric. I think it will be remembered quite well, but if I'm being honest with you, as I've said many a times before, I don't think this sport celebrates its legends well enough, and I don't think that their careers are remembered, and I don't think that the audience is reminded of their careers as much and as well as they should. What I mean by that is, talk to a current fan today about Anderson Silva. Talk to them about GSP. Talk to them about Chuck Liddell, about Randy Couture, about Tito Ortiz. How many of them know who those guys were? And perhaps things will be different because the sport is more popular today than it was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. But I wonder, like, even now, you talk about GSP and people are like, yeah, so, and, who, what? No big deal. Talk to me about, Mr. X, who's currently fighting instead. And so here you have a fighter who had the greatest run of any women's champion, who had one of the greatest runs of any champion, period, who I will say, and I want to talk about that, like the greatest of all time stuff. It's always hard to say the greatest of all time because what if they retire on an 8-fight losing streak? Are they still the greatest of all time then? That's why I like to say one of the greatest runs of all time. But now the run is over. And now I could say, all right, you go out on top, you defended the titles, all that stuff. Yeah, you're the greatest of all time. But I'm always hesitant to say that in the moment. I try my very best not to say that in the moment because things can change that would affect their standing as greatest of all time. From losses to performance to drug tests to all that stuff and more. I do think a great way to have ended it all would have been the trilogy fight. And then you're done. You win that, and there's literally no one left. But you can also say she won the rematch. It's over, and now she walks away as a double champ, and that's going to be very hard to replicate. But that being said, I do wonder because she doesn't put herself out there as much and isn't necessarily a media darling and a superstar in terms of her popularity. Will she get that same love, and will people reminisce and talk about her like some others 5 years down the line? I do wonder. She deserves it. I would love for that to happen, but I do wonder, considering how I see people talk about Anderson and GSP and Tito and Chuck and Randy and guys like that now, you wonder what it's going to do to someone who maybe didn't connect with the audience as much. She deserves it. Demetrious Johnson deserves it. All of them deserve it. But I do wonder just based off of history and those examples. So it will be interesting to monitor. Scott F. Good day, Ariel. At this point, I think it's clear that Julianna Peña is doing her best job to play the heel. For the most part, I think she does a good job of selling the rivalry between her and Amanda, even without Amanda really playing along. And I do think Amanda plays along to a degree, saying that she doesn't like her, doesn't want her to be champion, wouldn't have left if she was champion, etc., etc. She does it in her own way. With that being said, I'm starting to get the feeling that she is reaching X-Pac level heat with the fans. Most of her comments last week, her reaction to Amanda's retirement and most recent interview with you seems so disingenuous. I can't help but just want to look away or skip. I know that it's not the heel's job to be genuine, but if it's not convincing, it just doesn't land. I could be wrong here, but as the #1 wrestling reporter, I'd like to hear your opinion on how she's managing this wrestler persona. You're the man, Scott F. I got to be honest with you. I think she's doing a fine job. If she fights Raquel Pennington for the belt without this persona, without this personality, without seeing people want to, without people wanting to see her get her head smashed in, I don't know if there's any interest in that fight, just being honest. And I see the engagement on her stuff. And to me, X-Pac heat is people turning away, and you could call her annoying, you could call her disingenuous and all that. And I actually don't. I think you can, if you want to call her annoying, fine. I don't think it is disingenuous. Is she dialing it up? Perhaps. But I think she's trying to pick a fight. And I don't think that she is lying to herself when she is saying any of these things. And I think she's getting people. I mean, how many people at 135 are connecting with the audience right now? How many people at 145 are connecting with the audience? Like, she's trying to get people emotionally invested in her, good or bad. If she was just, not doing media, playing it down the middle, very vanilla, who's talking about her? And so you could say, like, it's unfortunate that she has to go that route, but I'll tell you, there's going to be a lot more interest in a Pena Pennington or a Pena home fight with her doing this than there would have been without her doing this. And I think that sometimes we get too caught up with the internet, Twitter and Instagram. And people are like, oh, she's so annoying. She's so cringe. She's so this and that. But I think all those people are still watching her fight. Now, she's selling 1 million pay-per-views as a result of this? No. But historically, this type of approach works. Look no further than the great Colby Covington and so many others. And there's different ways of doing this. Chael did it. I mean, it works. It 100% works. And I think it's working for her. Now, is it resonating with everyone? Is she becoming a fan favorite? No, I don't think she wants to be. But as long as they're talking about her and feeling some sort of way about her, in her mind, I think it's working. And I do think it's working. I think a lot of people are going to be rooting for Raquel Pennington if that is her next opponent, if that's who she's fighting for the belt, to beat her and shut her up because she says she's the greatest and all this stuff. I see the reaction. And, if you are okay with being hated and people saying things about you online, you're off and running. And I think she is. If you are sensitive about these things and you want to be loved, then it's hard to pull it off. But her type of personality can pull it off. Jacob. Greetings, Ariel and crew. Just up the street from the Militich Fighting Systems in Iowa. Shout out. First question I have is for you, Mr. Helwani. Do you foresee Conor Chandler getting pushed to 300? Although far out, what do you want for 300? Didn't we talk about this on the show, or am I crazy? That might have been something else. Might have been a different show. Anyway, unrelated, but as he goes into retirement after his bout against Nico Price at UFC 290, could you reflect on the illustrious career of Robbie Lawler? I'm forever grateful for his representation of Bettendorf High School, which I'm currently attending. Wow. That's awesome. I'm assuming as a student? He has a second question here. Let me just address the first. There's a couple in there. I saw something online. I think it was from my good friends at Verdict MMA saying that Conor has to enter the pool in the next couple days in order to fight this year. I don't know about any of that stuff. Honestly, we're all kind of claiming that we know everything there. Who the fuck knows? But if the 6 months are a real thing, who knows? And we're getting close to 300. I threw out the idea. I was talking about it with my friend JD Bunkus of Sportsnet 590, The Fan, who I think is one of the best radio guys in the business, Canada or US, and he was asking me about Conor, and I threw out the idea if Nathan Diaz wins on August 5th against Jake Paul, he gets on the microphone and says, I'll see you at UFC 300, Conor, for the trilogy. I mean, the UFC will salivate. And I think Nathan wants to go back at some point. He has said as much at the press conference in Dallas in May. So who knows what is going on with all this. How is tough, by the way, GC? I saw that he's out. Oh, he just stepped out. All right. I saw that he's 0-3. So that's not great. I don't know if it's, entertaining or not these days, but it's just not, like I said, it's not for me. I don't think it's produced for me or fans like me who have been watching it for so many years. But let's see what happens. I get the feeling like Chandler is getting a little bit nervous, but maybe that's just me, looking a little bit too deep into all of it. I thought Julianna fighting at 300 would have been interesting because she headlined 200. But I still think we're a little bit far out from that. A little bit far out, because if it's in March or April, like there's a few things that need to happen first. Like if O'Malley becomes champ, maybe you put him on there. Who knows? There's just like one more slew of fights that need to happen before we get to 300. As for Robbie Lawler, absolute legend of the game. Took him a while. There was that period there. He's fighting for Strikeforce. Seems like he's just kind of like coasting. He's falling asleep at press conferences. He's winning some. He's losing some. He's unmotivated. He's a former UFC legend. He's an Elite XC grade. He gets to Strikeforce. It just feels like he's kind of plateauing. And I'm talking now like 10 or so years ago. And then he gets into the UFC, and all of a sudden he's rejuvenated. He's reinvigorated. He's remotivated. And he goes on this amazing run, and he wins the title in the latter portion of his career. And he produces some incredible fights. The Carlos Condit fight, the Roy McDonald fight, Johnny Hendricks. Like, these are some great historic fight of the year winners and candidates. He was incredible in this last run. But it is time. I mean, it's amazing that he's been fighting for so long, and kind of like one of those guys like Max Holloway who started out so young, so it just feels like he's been around forever. But I'm happy for him that he's getting to go out on his terms. Nothing left to prove, nothing left to do, and I suspect that the fight against Nico Price is just going to be bananas, and just the perfect way to say goodbye to him. Not someone who went after the media in terms of getting attention, didn't really want to do media. That was part of his charm. I'll never forget that press conference in Chicago where he's sleeping at the dais. He has his hat over his eyes, and he just could not give a fuck. But he showed up, always showed up to fight. Great performances, and just an absolute legend of the game. The second question is for New York Rick. Is New York Rick there?
I'm here.
Hello, New York Rick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
This gentleman is saying, Mr. Eric Jackman, if you could make one UFC fight that's not often talked about, what would it be? What I mean by that is something other than Jones-Francis or other fights that are talked about regularly. Love from the great state of Iowa, and thank you for your time, my friend.
Yeah, the one I wanted the most was Justin and Dustin, but we've been talking about that forever, right?
Yeah.
The one I want that I don't think we'll get, but I would love is Dustin versus Colby. That's the fight I've always wanted. I've always thought they should have been on a collision course when both were kind of like, it seemed like sidelined and not really like able to find fights due to the circumstances. I've always thought those two should have fought, and I would really like to see that one.
I have floated that to Dustin, and he dismisses it right away.
That's why I want it so bad.
I know, but I think it's because it's very, very personal.
Yeah, that's why I want it so bad.
I know.
That's why I want that fight so bad. I don't think we'll ever see it, but I would absolutely love to see Dustin versus Colby.
By the way, you've been working on this show in some way, shape, or form since 2012, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Which is wild that like you were working on the show January of 2012, right? Was it 2012 or 2011?
It was 2012. End of 2011 was when I met with you and met with
2010. No,
2011.
It's just crazy that and so then April of 2012, my son was born, and then I just went to his 5th grade graduation today. Like, we're getting really old. Anyway, I was talking to you yesterday. Yeah. I was like, has Max ever been in studio? I didn't think he was ever in studio. And you said you weren't quite sure, but thought he had never been in studio as well. That was the best. And we've had him on a gazillion times, right? And I'm not saying it because of me, but just like it's just amazing when you don't talk to them about fighting, what you get, and especially in person. Wasn't that just the best?
I think is face to face. I think is irreplaceable, right? Like that's the gold. The gold is when you can sit in a room with somebody and look them in the eyes. It puts them at ease. I feel like Max has become a little bit like protective, but he was very open today, and I feel like it's you see a person, you can get a sense of them. And that was the best match.
Even when
that
you start
amazing.
talking to him about the fighting, though, he goes back to being a little bit short with it. And then you talk, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And usually it would be
You're
like,
right.
you're asking him about his mom doing drugs, and you're like, fuck that. And he's very willing to speak about that. And then the fighting is just like, yeah, it is what it is. We'll see.
I think there's like a fear of like getting misquoted or aggregated or this or that. And it's a lot more likely to happen when you're talking about fights than when you're talking about like his life.
Yeah.
So I think it's that. But I'm with you. A+ for Max today. His best appearance on the show ever. And he's been on the show
a million times.
A couple dozen times. Yeah, like a bunch.
John and HB, Ariel, a challenge. You're the best in the business. So I know you can do it. Find out what the hell is really going on with Chimaev. We're hearing Usman Khamzat is not happening via dear friend Chael. Why is this guy really on ice? Dana says they're in the fight business. Why would they have one of their most exciting on ice for so long? We trust in you, Ariel. You're our only hope. Honestly, I think it's an Abu Dhabi thing. They want to deliver certain fighters with certain fan bases to Abu Dhabi. And that's coming up in October. I would be shocked if he's not on that card. And I think it's just a scheduling thing, honestly. That's my opinion. Dear Tom Kenny, hi Ariel. Several MMA UFC Hall of Fame questions. Oh, this Hall of Fame thing is so weird. Like, what are we talking about? Can we talk more about why there's not a real MMA Hall of Fame? Like, where everyone's getting all up in arms about DC's throwaway comment about Jim Miller, and like. Yes, Jim Miller is a Hall of Famer. Sure. What is the requirement? I don't even know what the requirement is for a Hall of Fame. Could we put that same energy into an actual MMA Hall of Fame, and then we could talk about what the requirements are and if this guy is eligible, and if this guy makes the cut? This is so stupid. Like, I have no problems with the UFC Hall of Fame, but to me, it's like debating if the Knicks should retire Carmelo Anthony's jersey. Okay, great. Let me know when they retire Charles Oakley's first, and if not, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, and if Frank Shamrock's not in the UFC Hall of Fame, who cares? And then my good friend Ant Evans was saying, oh, he doesn't want to participate in the thing. Who gives a fuck? The Hall of Fame shouldn't be about if you want to participate in the ceremony. It's do you make the cut? Are you good enough? Does your career hold up? Is your resume good enough? Does that mean we can't put anyone in who's dead? So, like, the UFC Hall of Fame is what it is. It's a great thing, and they've done a great job of revolutionizing it and making it into a thing, and it's become a thing, and people care, and the announcements are great. I have no issues. But can we talk about why there's not a real MMA Hall of Fame, and then talk about Jim Miller being in there? Anyway, do you predict Amanda Nunes goes into the Hall of Fame this year? This year? What? No. Look, can we wait a bit? She just fought in June. She's obviously not going to go in this year because the Hall of Fame ceremony is in like 3 weeks, but no. I like the 4-year thing. Can we institute that? Distance makes the heart grow fonder. What is your reaction to DC's Jim Miller Hall of Fame comments? I mean, it's his opinion. Why are people getting so mad about his opinion about something that has no criteria? Oh, of course. You're crazy, DC. What? He's just, by the way, he's fucking Daniel Cormier, for the record. He is Daniel Cormier. If anyone could speak on this stuff, it's Daniel Cormier. One of the greatest fighters of all time. His opinion holds a hell of a lot more weight than yours. And I don't know who the yours is that I'm talking about, but 98% of you, Daniel Cormier's weight, well, his opinion holds more weight, but also his weight holds more weight. Love you, DC. I didn't mean to do that. I mean, I have DC all up. I mean, you're right here. I got him right there. I mean, it's a lot of DC. By the way, is there any sign of me on his show at all? And not even the ESPN stuff. Is there any sign of me on any of his programming?
And his heart.
I don't even think he's lots of men. You see Chris Weidman on the weigh-in show says my name. DC gets all clammed up.
It's probably a ringing in his ears right now.
Still love him. If you were in charge of the UFC or an MMA Hall of Fame, what would be your criteria for a fighter entering? Everyone's different. Just like the Basketball Hall of Fame, the best Baseball Hall of Fame, the Football Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame, everyone is different. Everyone has their own story, their own journey. It should be up to a vote. But man, oh man, do I wish that there was an MMA Hall of Fame. Long, long overdue. It would be great. There's a boxing one. They just had the induction ceremony a few days ago. Think about all the greats. The sport in America is 30 years old. It's been around longer than that worldwide. It is so long overdue, and it is a massive bummer. And I kind of feel like until we don't have a proper MMA Hall of Fame, like the sport is still here. Every major sport needs a Hall of Fame of some kind. And it bums me out that there's not one that people can go to, visit. Fighters can get the honor, not just UFC fighters, everyone who has put their blood, sweat, and tears. By the way, DC's Jim Miller comments were as follows, quote, "I just don't feel like time served puts you in the Hall of Fame. You have to have accomplishments to go into the Hall of Fame." I mean, he is the winningest fighter, right? I mean, that's not just time served. He's not like some guy with 140, what is it, like 100 wins and 48 losses or some crazy thing like that, or 48 losses and 100. Like he's done stuff. He's on the list in the record books, at least for now. So it's not just time served. Anyway, last one outside of MMA. Do you think Eric Bischoff was a bit too harsh on his comments on AEW? It seems to me if a company sold over 65,000 tickets in Wembley and just scored its second TV show on a major network, it's more than just a hobby. I mean, I don't think it's just a hobby. And I don't know what his beef is with Tony Khan. And I think it's unbelievable that they sold over 65,000. And I see these wrestling fans, it's so crazy how they're like, as good as you are in MMA, you're horrible in pro wrestling. All right. Why is that? Because I've praised AEW, because I've had Daniel Bryan on. What about that day that we had freaking MJF and Action Bronson, all booked through me, by the way, to promote their Queen's show? These people are insane. I've never seen such a sensitive bunch of fans. You're crazy, and you've convinced yourself that I have some sort of vendetta against AEW when I've talked about them and praised them as much as WWE, and often put down WWE's product in praising AEW's product, and what they're doing with the 65,000 and the Wembley and all that stuff and getting the other TV show is great. But if a guy like Eric Bischoff is going to say that, by the way, I asked Hogan about them, like, chill the fuck out. I don't know what Bischoff's vendetta is or what his beef is. Maybe he doesn't like the comparisons to WCW. I can tell you this, it's not more than just a hobby. It is an actual thing that he takes very seriously, I would imagine. I do wonder, though, outside looking in, call me crazy, he's got a lot of jobs, and there is something called spreading yourself too thin. Maybe he's paying attention to one more than the other, but on paper, the Jaguars job in itself seems like a full-time job. The Fulham job in itself seems like a full-time job. The AEW job in itself definitely seems more like a full-time job. And then you also have, the other businesses that he's a part of. And so that's the thing where people might say, like, oh, is there too much? But I don't think that it's incredible how far they've come in a short amount of time. And when you consider that there's nothing even remotely close to AEW in MMA, and they've been around, 4 years? There's nothing even remotely close with the same crazy fans, as sensitive and tribal and crazy as they may be. They are a credit to AEW. They are a credit to them because to them, AEW could do no wrong. Any MMA promotion outside of the UFC wishes they had crazy fans like that. Wishes. Would do anything to have that. I mean, we've got this Bellator card with Patricio Pitbull on there, and like, who's fighting on Bellator's behalf? Who's fighting the Bellator battle online? Who's fighting the PFL battle online? Who's fighting the Japanese MMA battle online? The one championship? There's no one. There's absolutely no one. All I see is apathy, except for UFC. UFC they'll battle for. AEW they'll battle for. WWE they'll battle for. And so that's a credit to them and what they built and the fan base. So no, it's not just a hobby. It's a real thing. It's a real player, and it's been more successful than any other promotion in the 21st century. And it's the most successful non-WWE promotion since WCW. And so we'll see what happens, and we'll see if he's being spread too thin. But you'd have to ask Eric these questions. I know he does another show. He does 83 Weeks and another one. I didn't really know about his beef with AEW, if you want to call it that. the natural question to ask him is about AEW, since he was the AEW to WWE's WWE back in the day, or WWF back in the day. It was a great conversation though, and I really enjoyed it. You can check it out on my YouTube page and also on the Showtime basketball feed, because the main impetus. Oh yeah, someone said Ariel only books. I saw Ariel only books people who hate AEW or to shit on AEW. The reason for the interview was to reminisce about the 25th anniversary of the Dennis Rodman, Hulk Hogan, Karl Malone DDP tag match that happened in July of 1998, 25 years ago. That was the main reason. And then we got into the wrestling stuff because how could I not ask Eric Bischoff first time I speak to him some of these questions? So just chill out, all right? It's not that serious. Ben P, hello, Ariel, big fan. But you and everyone else are annoying me when talking about the DDP versus Robert Whittaker fight. If people don't think DDP can beat Rob, how is he a credible contender to fight Izzy? I mean, it's not that I don't think he can beat Rob. It's just that what if he loses to Rob? What if he loses to Rob? And Rob is arguably the second best middleweight on the planet and one of the best top 10 fighters on the planet as well, pound for pound. I'm just saying, like, why kill him off when you could have done Rob versus Costa, which would have made a ton of sense, or Rob versus Strickland. People, Rob having lost to Izzy, Costa having lost to Izzy, so they're not canceling each other out. Strickland needs a big time. Like, that's all that I felt or feel. Same with Arnold Allen and Max Holloway. If Allen can't beat Max, then he doesn't deserve a shot at Volk. That's not how it works. You have to try to build up the talent, because you can have Sean O'Malley fight Corey Sandhagen tomorrow and say, if you can't beat Corey Sandhagen, no, that's not how this works, because all styles, make fights, and not every fight is the same. And you have to have contenders. You have to have people waiting in the wings. If you keep killing them off with people who have lost to the champion, that's the problem that they faced with like a Joseph Benavidez back in the day, or a Faber back in the day when Cruz was champion, or, a ton of other guys over time. Now Usman with Leon as champion. Anyway, I disagree with the notion that these kinds of fights are bad for the up-and-coming contenders and believe this is how true number one contenders are made. Yeah, but if you're left with the same guys at the top, you're going to have a hard time selling those fights. That's all. So you got to be strategic and smart about it. Patrick, if Oliveira loses to Islam, he's in the same strange boat as Whittaker and Holloway. If you were the matchmaker, how would you avoid creating these log jams in each division? And how should we treat a former champ number one contender who's lost to the reigning champ multiple times? Move divisions, trade? I love DuBronx, Blessed, and Bobby Knuckles. Oh, yeah, and Max and Volk is another one. But I don't care about seeing them fight for their old belt against the same guy. Now, DuBronx is different. He's only lost once. So you can't put him in the Blessed or Bobby Knuckles category. If he loses again, then all right, we'll deal with that. But I don't think that the Oliveira-Islam situation is the same as Whittaker and Holloway. He's only lost him once. Nick the Dane, gang, big weekend of fights coming up. Yes, one of the bigger fights is the Pitbull-Sergio Pettis bout. I agree. The next part is your favorite, Ariel. Hypothetical. Stay with me. With a win over Pettis, Pitbull will be a 3-division champion. So the question is, will he be considered one of the GOATs, or will he get the Fedor treatment, where since he never fought in the UFC, he's irrelevant? I wouldn't say irrelevant, but I don't think that he gets the attention. I don't think he gets the love, partially because he fights in the number 2 or number 3 promotion, whatever you want to call them, but also partially because of the caliber of the opponents. Some might not think that they're UFC caliber. I think that's kind of crazy. Look at how Michael Chandler has done in the UFC. I just think that he's kind of been in the shadows. I think he'll get some love, but just look at the difference between Michael Chandler in Bellator and Michael Chandler in the UFC. It's just a whole different platform. It's way bigger. You get way more popular, way more attention. If Pitbull wins this and has a run at 35 and is a double champion, it feels to me like Pitbull will be one of those guys that is appreciated a lot more when he's gone. But it's hard to say, because at some point he could go to the UFC too and turn into a Michael Chandler fan favorite, because he has that style. He's a very fun fighter to watch. So, but yes, right now, I don't know how many people would put them in their top 10 favorite fighters, or I don't know if he's walking around the streets here, if he's getting noticed like a top 30 UFC fighter, even though he's arguably, number 1 in Bellator or up there. Bellator champions, like I said, they've never been better. And he's at the top of that list. But because it's Bellator and there's not a ton of promotion and hype around them right now for whatever reason. He doesn't get that love. Fedor was on a totally different level. Fedor in his prime, way more popular and famous than Pitbull. Fedor was beloved in Russia. I don't even know how popular Pitbull is in Brazil right now. So totally different time, totally different era. Also, Fedor beloved in Japan. Huge. He was the face of Pride in many respects, along with Mirko and Rampage and a few other guys, Shogun, Vanderlei. But he was up there. He was the heavyweight champ. Redneck Jiu-Jitsu. Hi, Ariel. I've been watching your content since the infamous How's Taste My PP interview. Wow. July of 2008. That was Affliction. In honor of 30 years of UFC history, I had a discussion with some of my friends I've never heard your opinion on. If you were to take Mighty Mouse Johnson with all his skills and martial arts knowledge, would he win the first UFC tournament with his massive size disadvantage? I'd like to hear your and the boys' thoughts on this. Keep the old school rules in mind. No holds barred, no biting, no eye gouging, no mandatory gloves or combative uniform, no judges' scores, unlimited 5 rounds, knockout, tap out, corner stoppage are the only determination methods. And referee could halt a match pending the corner decision. I think MMA is a completely different sport today as it was in 1993. And so yes, you somehow like transport him to 1993 with the skill set that he has. A 135-pound Mighty Mouse might have a tough time fighting a heavyweight, but skill for skill, he smokes all of them. It's not even a question. Now, if you're actually literally putting him in there at 135 pounds against the likes of Gerard Gordeau, Tyler Tooley, I guess it depends on the matchup too, because like Gordeau smoked Tooley in 26 seconds. Kevin Rozier, Zane Frey, a lot of these dudes were big. Now, Gracie was still like in the 170, 180 range. The only thing going against him is his size. But skill-wise, he wouldn't even... I don't even think he would be challenged. It's just... But the sport has evolved so much, it's totally different. Like, Gracie couldn't really strike. DJ could strike. It's just a totally different sport. It's like comparing a 2020... It's like comparing, like, Nikola Jokic to George Mikan. You know what I mean? It's just a totally different sport. But yes, skill for skill, I think he would smoke all of them. Nathan, what's up, Ariel and crew? I really loved your interview with Lee Ellis on the Showtime Basketball Pod. Thank you. That was great. A great story there to be told. Lee is the man. I got all nostalgic listening about 80s and 90s All-Star games, and as a fellow Aussie, I too knew the pain of getting my hands on anything from box scores, NBA countdown highlights, and the 1994 NBA Finals on a 7-day delay. Holy shit. I was in mourning on day 7. That was after the Knicks lost to the Rockets. I was especially struck by the conversation you both had about being in a rut with a job and wanting to take a risk or chance in your career. I know you have taken risks, and it's amazing to see you become independent Helwani across not just MMA, but now in boxing and basketball. Do you have any tips on taking chances? Do you line them up before taking that leap of faith, or do you just take the plunge? Well, I appreciate the note, Nathan. And obviously you have to think things through, and you have to, plan it out and see if it's doable and see if it's, something that you're able to be successful at and accomplish. But I would say, like, you kind of have to take the plunge as well and just hope for the best and believe in yourself and believe that things are going to turn out well. And I just always live by the credo that you only get one life, that you don't want to be 80 and regret things. And I have regrets about my early days, my early childhood, like high school, college me. I have zero regrets thus far about adult me. And part of the reason why I have zero regrets about adult me is because I have regrets about childhood me. And what are my regrets about childhood me is that I sweated the small stuff too much. I was too nervous about stupid shit, about school stuff. And I'm not saying like I took school serious, but like ultimately that math test that I was freaking out about in the grand scheme of things in the 9th grade didn't really mean all that much. And I know it's easy to say that in retrospect, and I know all these things lead to a bigger thing. But trust me when I say I sweated the small stuff way too much. I wasn't as, carefree as a kid. And so like when I talk to my kids now and my son's upset that he didn't make a certain level of his soccer team, I just try to remind him that he's only 11 and none of this really matters as long as he's having fun and successful in whatever he's doing right now and enjoying it. That's what it's all about. And hopefully you have a certain mindset later in life that helps you be successful. And so you could say like, oh, okay, it was great that I learned that. And I learned that those regrets are not something that I want to have in my later life. And that's what, helped me here as an adult. But I would just say, ultimately I'm okay with saying like, oh, I didn't go to this or I didn't do that. I didn't do, this in college and I didn't have fun. I didn't join this frat, whatever it is. I'm okay living with those regrets. I wouldn't have been okay with career regrets or adult regrets if I didn't move to the States, if I didn't, take a leap here, if I didn't start JarryPark.com in 2007, if I didn't leave Spike TV, if I didn't go to ESPN, if I didn't leave ESPN, if I, X, Y, and Z. So that's my main thing. That's why I'm trying all these fun, new things, different things. And I would just say, like, if you look around and you feel like you can be successful, even if it, I was just talking to, who was I talking? Oh, when I was talking to Tim there about like pro wrestling and boxing and representing those people. And, I was actually thinking a little bit because he's like, I don't know anyone in those worlds. And we're in different spots. He's 31. I'm 40, about to be 41, which is crazy to me. But like, I don't know. Look, I'll tell you guys something about this Showtime basketball pod. Like when I signed up, I was like, great. I love to do this. I thought that, the guests were going to be booked for me. None of the guests, one of them was booked for me out of the 20 that I've done so far. That was daunting at first. I remember coming to the realization in March, like I'm going to have to book these guests myself. And, I will be a Mike Brown fan for the rest of my life. Coach Mike Brown, NBA Coach of the Year, who I had met because he was coaching the Nigerian men's basketball team 2 years ago, and he somehow got my information, I think from the PR guy, Raymond Ritter of the Golden State Warriors, who put us in touch, and he wanted to try to get in touch with Izzy and Usman to send the Nigerian men's basketball team as they were going to Tokyo for the Olympics a message of encouragement. And so I kind of kept in touch with him and I asked him to come on and he was the first person to say yes after I got 0 replies from a whole bunch of people or no's. And that's very humbling because you think I sit here and you're like, oh, you talk to Max, you talk to Izzy, and all of a sudden I go into this other sport and no one gives a fuck about who I am or knows who I am or cares about me. And that is daunting. And it was not very easy at first. And it's still not easy. I'm only like 20 episodes in. But the point is like, I was like, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? So this person says no, that person says no. I think I could be really good at this. And so you just keep chipping away. And then eventually, good things start to happen. And this person replies and that person replies. And you start to feel good about yourself. So I would say, don't live with regrets. Go out there. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to stumble. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't lick your wounds. Don't say, woe is me, and the world is out to get me, and I can't make it, and I can't get over the hump, and this person has this, and I can't get that. Go out there and fucking seize the day. Fucking take life by the horns, and remember that you only get one shot at this. And when you're 80 and sitting on your porch and drinking some warm milk, you don't want to regret anything. You want to say, you know what? That was a pretty freaking great run. I'm blessed. I'm lucky. It was fun. Now I could chill. That's all I want.